Hey, Chris.
Oh, we're doing this already?
What time is it?
I haven't had my coffee. It's butthole o'clock in the morning.
Where are we going?
I don't think we need to even do this episode. This is a cult. Nobody in their right mind gets up this early in the morning.
We are on our way to have breakfast.
It's 6 o'clock, 6:20 now? 6:20. It's now at 6:20, but I had to get up at like 5:30.
You know very little about what we're about to do, just that it's a breakfast situation. We're about to pick up your parents and we're all going to go have breakfast.
Sounds lovely. By the way, thank you for turning this on without giving me any warning, so that my voice is all like, I'm like the scratchy voice. I didn't even have a chance to clear my throat or anything. Drink water, drink coffee. Oh my god, I sound horrible.
You sound fine. The listeners don't care about your voice. They care about the cult.
Breakfast.
And breakfast.
Or just weird.
We'll see you there.
Yeah. I hope they have breakfast burritos. Okay, so
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Kayla.
Welcome to our podcast. It is called Cult or Just Weird.
I have no idea what we're doing. I never have any idea what's going on.
Just in terms of our topic or in terms of doing a show?
Just in general.
Yeah.
With me in the universe, I don't really get that part.
Same. Agreed. I am Kayla. I am a television writer.
Did I say I was Chris? I'm just so... and I've had my coffee.
I don't know what's wrong with you.
What's going on? I'm
Who
Chris.
Are you? What do
I'm
you
Chris.
do?
I do data science. I do game design. I do a podcast. Sometimes I draw stuff.
All of the above. Welcome to our listeners. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm kind of vamping because you said you have business and I don't know what it is.
Oh, it's just... Oh, no. It's minor business. It's not like...
Business me, baby.
It's nothing crazy. I have two businesses.
All right. Do the business. I want to know what the business is.
All right. I'm going to do my business.
Do your business. Stop. We have potential new audience members listening today.
Right.
We should present ourselves.
As we are with poop jokes?
No.
I'm sorry. That's what they are. Okay. Business number one. With all this alien stuff going on, I just thought I'd mention a couple. I know nobody asked for my thoughts, but I have thoughts. We did do aliens in the show once. We did throw away Alien. And so I feel like it is... For longtime listeners, I feel like it is still somewhat relevant. Like this whole disclosure thing, like that was what Throwaway Alien was about. That whole community was like, rah disclosure, which if you don't know what that means, it means like disclosure broadly in this context refers to like more and more government people saying, oh yeah, we totally actually do have aliens. And that's something that just recently happened in the news. There's this testimony from the guy whose name escapes me now. He went up there and said, we supposedly actually have... Under oath, he said we actually have crashed alien craft and beings not of this world.
You said alien corpses.
Yeah, well, it's I think he calls it like non-terrestrial biologics, or there's some sort of word that he uses for it. But it also is like broad enough. I think that he meant like it could include extra-dimensional beings. I'm gonna have to check on that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's just a little weird. So it's okay. So this guy said some things under oath.
Was he from the Etheria Society?
And he might have been. And I just want to say that like there's two things that are sort of on my mind about it. One is that I've seen a lot of, because I follow skeptics. I follow UFO skeptics on Twitter. One of them being Mick West. I think we might have mentioned him on the episode on Throwaway Alien. And so whenever something like this happens, those guys get the questions of like, well, what would be enough evidence for you? Like what would you want to see? And I just want to say what it would be for me, because I feel like I've seen those guys say a lot like, well, it would have to be this kind of photo, right? It would have to be this kind of picture.
I don't believe a photo or a video at all anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's kind of what I want to say is like, when I see someone like Mick West say like, it would have to be a video that fell under these criteria and had these elements to it and blah, blah, blah. I'm kind of like, dude, I don't know about you. A photo is not enough for me. A video is not enough for me. Like, and this comes back to the trust network thing. Like there are multiple more layers of just a really good video there are multiple more layers of my trust network that would have to get through before I was like, okay, yeah, aliens. We're not doing the topic today on aliens, so I'm not going to like go into all the details, but there's a lot of things that would have to clear that bar. Like I would have to understand the whole framework under which this discovery was made, right? It can't just be like, hey, there's a guy. There's a guy who said something.
Yeah, I kind of would need like the president to do it.
Well, it's not just the president. It would have to be like, it would have to fall under the framework of like a discovery, right? Like, hey, we found some stuff. We're not sure what it is. Okay, then we studied it, and now we think here's what it is.
I take a little bit of issue with that only because we do have a history of our government being accused of like doing conspiracies or covering things up, and then them going no, denying, and then coming out later saying, actually, yeah, that thing back in the 50s, we did do that.
Right. So here's my answer to that. Actually, my specific answer to that is that most of those things are things that our government did, not things that our government discovered. So like Tuskegee and like Operation Paperclip and
thinking like MK Ultra,
right? The classics. Those are all things that like our government did, and the conspiracy that they were trying to play off as was like, oh no, that's just a conspiracy theory. We didn't actually do that. Yes, there's something here with the aliens that the government is quote unquote doing, but the larger picture is that like have aliens visited. That has nothing to do with our government. Right. There's the step 2 is the part of our government where they're coming in and supposedly hiding things. But the point I'm trying to make here is that there's a naturalist sort of like discovery element to this that precedes government cover up, and that I haven't seen anything along those. Like it can't start with like, oh, well, the government was covering this thing up. That's not what it starts with. It starts with like an alien visited or an alien craft visited. Right, like when the Oumuamua, I forget if that's the correct way of pronouncing it, but when that thing was passing through the solar system, that felt more credible to me. I don't think that it is an alien craft, but at least the process felt more credible to me, where it was like, hey, scientists or astronomers discovered this thing. It's coming into our solar system and has these weird properties. That's way more credible to me than like random guy in the government is like, we've been hiding things. And then the other element here is like, it's not just what evidence would it take, what sort of like immediate pictorial or videographic evidence would it take? There's also like a lot of science that I'd have to be convinced that made sense.
Sure.
Are we saying that whoever this alien race, whoever it is, got here with faster than light travel? You'd have to explain to me why that's suddenly like physically possible.
Right.
There, and not even physically possible, like physically and like practically possible. Like even if it were physically possible with like, we have designs for warp engines, right? But like they involve things that we don't think actually exist, like negative energy. Point is, you'd have to like convince me that the science actually makes sense too. Like I would be much more inclined to believe a disclosure that said, we found an alien probe. Right. Than we found alien biologics, because I have a whole framework for understanding a civilization sending out probes that, don't have a limited biological lifespan than I do for having an actual like alien corpse. So anyway, I don't want to go so far down this rabbit hole that this is what the episode is about. I just want to say that that's my thought on that. And then I also have a separate thought about like, I also don't want to replace one conspiracy with another by saying like, oh, it's.
But we're going to do it.
We're going to do it anyway. No, like there's a lot of talk out there about like, oh, well, it's not really aliens. It's about how whenever you hear the government talking about aliens, they're trying to cover up something else. They're trying to cover up a war, or they're trying to cover up the fact that every single union in America is striking right now, or they're trying to cover up global warming,
utilizing new military weapons or equipment, which I think is less crazy sounding than like they're secretly invading Poland or China or the Warsaw Pact. I don't know.
I think you're right.
Things are.
No, I think you're right, and that's why like a lot of these sightings happen near military bases. I think that's like a pretty plausible explanation for it. And I wouldn't even say any of this is crazy. I just think that it like belongs firmly in like speculation. I'm not going to like say, well, this is why, right? I'm not, because I don't want to say like. I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to replace one conspiracy with another where I'm saying like, okay, well, there's obviously not aliens. Instead, it's this other conspiracy.
Right.
That being said, I think that these other items, whatever you want to call them, these other explanations are good as like, well, what is your alternative explanation? If I say I don't think it's this and somebody, well, what do you think it is? Then like I do think that those fall under that category. I just think that I have to mark them. I have to label them as spec. I have to label them as speculation and not like internalize it as like, oh, the government's definitely doing this.
It is good and healthy to take things with a grain of salt, and maybe all things. I don't know.
Yeah, I love salt.
I love a grain.
Any and all
Just
grains.
any grain. I love it.
Ancient grains. Do you love ancient?
I do.
Yeah.
Give me some millet. Give me some sorghum.
You know, the aliens brought millet to us.
God bless them.
When they built the pyramids. Okay, so the other business was I was just speaking with friend of the show, Nicole, how she's a friend of the show. She talked to us, I think, it was the bonus content, right? For the Empty Spaces episode. Anyway, we're still sort of in touch. Actually, we've been in touch more lately because, as it turns out, she is a fellow ex-Ayn Rand. Did we mention this in a previous episode? I think we might have. Yeah. I think we mentioned this in the last episode.
We did, because we talked about the
shit.
scandals
no reveal.
that she talked about.
That's right. She talked us. She emailed us
about what Brandon might mean.
Right. Ben Rand. Okay, that's right. So we did already mention this. So never mind on that reveal. But I've still been talking to her. Actually, I was just talking to her on Discord about her experience, just for personal reasons. Really, I mean, it wasn't like mining content for the show or anything, but I was just kind of like I mean, I'm always mining content for the show because that's the world we fucking live in now. But also, I just kind of wanted my own sort of, I don't know, it's always useful and interesting and nice to be able to talk to someone that is either in the same community as you or had a similar, especially when that experience has like a lot of complexities to it.
Sure.
Complexities meaning like maybe there's some like regret or some like, why did I think that, whatever. When you were part of a cult, it's good to talk to other people that were part of the same cult. And I wasn't going to, like I said, mine this for content. However, she did have an insight that I thought was pretty interesting that I wanted to share real quick. What we talked about was basically this hook that Ayn Rand has, like this sort of stickiness that she has to like, when you're initially exposed to her literature, and this is all over her literature, this is all over her fiction, her nonfiction, but it's this idea that like, you have this sort of like secret genius, like the reason that you might feel awkward or outsider or bullied or whatever is because secretly like you're a genius and everybody's trying to take you down. And like, that's very much what the Fountainhead is about. And like, that's what a lot of her other stuff also talks about is like, there are people in this world that are geniuses. And then there's people that are shitheads and, losers, and they try to take down the geniuses or whatever. So there's this very like ego stroking drug that she does.
Sure.
And Nicole brought up this really interesting point, like comparing it to love bombing.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, that is really interesting. Like I kind of want to say that one on the show because I don't think that was a point that we made. And I think that is an interesting point.
Yeah. If Ayn Rand is directly talking to your like sad little teenage self of like, you're the best and you're great and everybody else sucks, but you're really good and great and I love you.
And not only that is like you felt crap. The reason you felt crappy is because you're actually the best.
Right.
So I thought that was really interesting. Like I'm not sure that it was like it's like a lot of love bombing stuff where like I don't know if it's strategic.
I don't know if a lot of people are sitting around going like, what are the techniques to use in order to get people into my cult?
Yeah, exactly.
But they use them. It's kind of like, we just watched a YouTube about like screenwriting. Like you use tropes without even knowing you're using them.
Right, exactly. And I think that's sort of what was maybe happening here is that it was just like a thing present in Rand's works that did function in that manner. So I thought that was interesting. I wanted to share it with you guys. And those are my two businesses.
You got the business done.
Those are my tech companies.
Business. 2 tech companies. Thanks for the business.
You're welcome. I'll give you the business anytime.
Cutting that out. Are you ready then to dive into today's topic?
I am ready.
Okay. Then we will start, as always, with a question.
Okay. Standard. That's a culture just weird trope.
Hey, Chris.
Yep. Hey.
FVNEM?
FU?
FVNEM?
Are you having a stroke?
Okay, so you're not getting that one. Okay, so how about FVNEX?
Is this like, what? Are you okay?
Still nothing?
Do we just stop recording? Do I need to call 911?
Okay, don't worry. Those are two separate questions.
Those aren't questions,
but they go
letters.
together. Yeah, we will answer those questions later on in the episode.
We will answer those letters later in the episode.
Keep in mind, FVNEM, FVNEX.
Are you going to tell me what that means?
We are going on an adventure for this episode, as per the theme of the season. And as for today's topic, I wanted to dig into something that will take us back through the history of Los Angeles. Today's topic has been around for almost 100 years and has a long and storied past. It revolves around rituals and leaders and shrines and cryptograms and celebrities and secret handshakes and initiations and ham.
Ooh, excellent. Do I get to eat ham?
Today we're talking about...
Or are we going ham?
The Los Angeles Breakfast Club.
It sounds like I do get to eat ham.
Hold that thought. Established in 1925 as a place for businessmen to eat breakfast and enjoy fellowship after riding horses along Griffith Park trails, the club has evolved over the near century to include a variety of rituals, group-specific lingo, traditions, activities, and more. Reminiscent of other fraternal orders we've covered like Woodmen of the World, or those we haven't covered like the Masons, Los Angeles Breakfast Club has its own unique spin on ritualized fraternal fellowship. Over the years, it's been home to iconic figures such as Walt Disney, Ronald Reagan, William Randolph Hearst.
Holy shit.
And many, many more.
Those are 3 very large names.
I wanted to share some clips from a Los Angeles Times video about the Los Angeles Breakfast Club to help explain and introduce this organization just a little bit better and kind of wet your whistle before we dive into what we're actually going to be talking about.
Amuse, how do you pronounce that?
Amuse-bouche.
Whatever I eat before the ham.
The beauty of the Breakfast Club, and I think its purpose, is just detached friendship. It was created so that in the middle of the week, when everybody's kind of got that hump day blues, people would come together and it was a shot of energy for the rest of the week.
People that are attending tend to arrive starting at 6:45. We always have a member assigned as the greeter. We have a buffet breakfast. Eggs are always standard, hash browns, a variety of breakfast options. Then people get about 20-25 minutes to sit at the table, socialize, get to know each other. The program starts about...
There's talks and there's music, and then we also have our rituals. One of our oldest rituals, the cryptogram, which we've had since 1925. A cartoonist came up. I feel like we often hear Los Angeles doesn't have history, and then you come to this, and it's the most historical thing you could possibly find.
Back in the 20s, a group of businessmen in Los Angeles used to ride their horses in the morning in Griffith Park and had breakfast along the way. And that was the beginnings of the Los Angeles Breakfast Club. A gentleman named Maurice.
Everybody used to come to this club. Calvin Coolidge was initiated into the Los Angeles Breakfast Club. Amelia Earhart came to the club. You'd have the Prince and Princess of Japan.
I first attended in 2013 while on my second honeymoon. And I was so charmed by the club, I was charmed by its members, I was made very welcome by its members. So much so that I actually altered my plans. I was only going to be in Los Angeles for a week, but I stayed a week and a half just so I could come to a second meeting. And I made a vow to those members, which was, if I am ever in Los Angeles on a Wednesday morning, I will be found at this club. I said that and I meant it, I just didn't know when I was ever going to be in Los Angeles again. But whether I like it or not, I am approaching the autumn of my life. And when you reach this time in your life, I have been told that it's just difficult to make friends. I have been told that, but you can't prove it by me, because here I am in the autumn of my life, and I have made the best friends I have ever had in my life.
That's so nice.
I know.
Jeez.
I know. Thank you so much to the Los Angeles Times, to the staff of the Los Angeles Times for putting that video together on their visit to the Los Angeles Breakfast Club. And yeah, I knew I wanted to do this as a topic, but then kind of the more I read about it and the more I heard responses like the gentleman at the end of that videos of finding such camaraderie in a time in his particular life when it can be difficult. I was like, okay, we gotta do this.
It is difficult.
There's some sort of draw here. People are going to this thing. They're finding some sort of really important meaning and community. So we got to do it.
Yeah. I have a question though.
Yes, sir.
For the host.
Yeah.
So 6:45, was that, did I hear that?
Yes.
That's a time that exists?
That is a time that exists in the morning that people are out and about and up and doing things.
Okay, but that's a theoretical, like we don't have to, we're not at 6:45, right?
Hold that thought.
Okay, I feel like I'm like doing the Jennifer Lawrence like Hot Ones meme where I'm like, what do you mean?
What do you mean?
What do you mean?
What do you mean? So do those news snippets kind of give you a little bit of an idea of the group that we're talking about today? Yes,
it's starting to give me an idea. Actually, I have one more comment on it.
Go ahead.
Because we have European listeners. We have listeners from Europe. So I think when they say it does have history, like, and we're talking about like the last like 100 or so years, then like we're grading on like an American curve. It's certainly chock full of history for the American side of the pond.
For the country of the United States.
Yeah.
And that was club historian Rachel Skitt giving that kind of background on the club. And she will come back, so keep that in mind.
Ooh, we'll get to that.
We're about to dive into a niche but deeply hewn rivulet of LA history. So let's start where we always do, in the beginning. In the early 1920s, a group of prominent businessmen in Los Angeles used to gather in the early mornings at Al Meyer's Griffith Park Riding Academy and set off together down the trails for a weekly convivial horse riding session.
Were they riding their horses at 6:45? What, like, am I
Had
crazy?
To do, what are you going to do before work?
Holy shit.
Hang out. Equestrianship is apparently hungry work, and these men would keep the good vibes going after the ride and get a bite to eat before heading off to their big business jobs. A local banker named Marco Hellman set up a temporary chuck wagon, or as Atlas Obscura calls it, quote, the food truck of its day, to feed his hungry guys.
Man, we're doing a lot of deep cuts today. We're like referencing a lot of stuff.
One morning in 1924, Hellman arranged for some musical accompaniment and also a friend to tell some stories of his crazy Chicago banking days over this weekly breakfast.
Okay.
And it was such a good time that Maurice Demond, director of the Los Angeles National Horse Show and one of these businessmen going out for these weekly rides, decided they all needed to make this an official thing. He asked everyone present to donate $100 each so this informal gathering could be codified into an official breakfast club.
That's a chunk of change back then.
Apparently, the other businessmen were so taken with this idea that they all swiftly donated the necessary money, equivalent to about $1,800 today. That's not nothing.
Whoa, yeah, that's like a for real amount of money.
But these were rich dudes. So along with Demond,
okay.
Early supporters were the likes of oil tycoon Edward Doheny, Tarzan creator and author Edgar Rice Burroughs,
Whoa,
and
shit.
film industry titans like Louis B. Mayer, Daryl Zanuck, and Cecil B. DeMille.
I've heard of at least one of those.
On March 6, 1925, enough money had been collected to establish the first official meeting of the Los Angeles Breakfast Club, which took place at 7 a.m. at the Griffith Park Riding Academy, and Maurice Demond was elected its first president.
Okay, look, as much as I'm making fun of the like 6:40, it's not even making fun of it. It's just that I'm like personally incapable of such things. I wish that I were more capable of such things because riding horses and then having breakfast with Cecil B. DeMille sounds really fun.
Yeah. I have a lot to say about that, and I will hold off because it'll just turn into a rant about the stage of capitalism that we're in, and we don't need that. Soon, the club bought property near 3201 Riverside Drive, which is just south of Griffith Park, and there was a dairy there, the Crosetti Dairy, turned that building into their clubhouse. Around this time, the club and its location were first referred to as, quote, the Shrine of Friendship.
Okay.
The Los Angeles Breakfast Club became so popular amongst businessmen, entertainers, and other Los Angelinos that membership fees rose to $500 in 1927.
Whoa.
And in 1928, President Demond created a corporation that allocated shares to each member. I think it was like 100 at a time.
Oh, so the businessmen did a business.
They did a business. The club only continued to grow, adding onto their clubhouse building and even starting a radio program. In March 1927, KFWB, which I think is still a station, and at the time belonged to the literal Warner Brothers, like the actual brothers. I think there were 4 of them, 4 Warner Brothers. KFWB started broadcasting the weekly meetings to listeners. And there was a lot to listen in on. This wasn't just like a who's who of Los Angeles getting together to eat eggs. There were musical guests, sing-alongs, traditions, rituals, and other forms of entertainment, including guest speakers, such as educators, scientists, comedians, authors, public figures, like a very diverse gamut of entertaining speakers that were to be educational and also like for funsies.
Man, I need to learn how to become a morning person.
No, we need to start a midnight snack club, which is the same thing, but it's for a midnight snack.
The Los Angeles, I can't really sleep right now club.
The Warner Brothers donated this airtime free of charge to the Los Angeles Breakfast Club, so it was like free advertisement and free kind of community building.
Mm-hmm.
Ham and eggs were regularly served and were also regular tropes, and the club would even come to refer to itself as the democracy of ham and eggs.
Can I just this also has personal meaning for me because the first book I ever read was Green Eggs and Ham. So I feel a connection.
You'd be welcome amongst the ranks, I'm sure. As the club grew, it firmly established itself as the place to be for prominent figures across the nation. Attendees in those early days include Los Angeles Times publisher Harry Chandler, Babe Ruth. We already mentioned newspaper publisher William Randolph Hearst. There were Olympic swimmers. There were famous philanthropists, current and future presidents, film producer Carl Laemmle, again, the Warner Brothers themselves, performers and actors like Will Rogers, Walt Disney.
Okay, I've heard of so many of these people.
I know.
That one guy is a candy bar now.
Oh, yeah, Baby Ruth. It took me a while. I was like, the Will Rogers? Isn't he a drink?
Will Rogers candy
Or is it a
I think he's a restaurant.
We've all heard of Walt Disney. And apparently when Amelia Earhart visited, it said that she very, I'm using this word flamboyantly, landed her plane in the nearby Los Angeles River before heading over to the clubhouse.
That is the most LA thing I've ever. That's incredible.
I think she was there for some sort of air show or something like that, but she landed the plane in the river and then
Oh my God. That's amazing.
One story often shared about these early days surrounds a visit to the club by President Calvin Coolidge.
Okay.
Legend has it that the aforementioned Will Rogers accepted a $100 bet that he couldn't make the president laugh because apparently he had a reputation for being very dour and stoic.
I didn't know that.
And so Rogers accepted the bet, of course, and
guarantee you he won that.
When Calvin Coolidge and his wife Grace were doing the receiving line at the club, so there was a crowd of over 1,500 members, and members would go by and greet the guests.
Okay.
Will Rogers shakes Calvin Coolidge's hand in the traditional greeting, moves on, and then he stopped and turned back and asked, "What was your name again?"
See?
And naturally, he left that meeting $100 richer. Another commonly told story involves a famous picture taken in 1930 of rivals Harry Chandler of the LA Times and William Randolph Hearst, two newspaper magnates notoriously at each other's business throats and both frequenters of the Los Angeles Breakfast Club. But true to the ideals of the democracy of ham and eggs and the shrine of friendship, when these two men were at a meeting of the Los Angeles Breakfast Club, they were friends and they were in fellowship. So there's even a picture of the two of them shaking hands, solidifying these ideals of the time.
Oh, I love that. That's like in Highlander when you can't fight on holy ground. It's exactly like that.
Exactly like that.
We have, this is the most chock full of pop culture references this show has been.
It's great.
I think.
Unfortunately, also in line with the ideals of the time, women were, of course, allowed to attend, but only men could officially pay the $500 membership fee and become full members.
Well, that actually sounds pretty good for you guys.
No, it's not.
Well, you didn't have to pay.
Women also couldn't have credit cards in there. Credit cards for women.
Oh, yeah. No, you were fucked in every other way.
You couldn't be a member.
Oh,
so you couldn't get the benefits of membership. You couldn't get discounts on horse riding or whatever. So no, not a good thing.
Good point.
But that didn't stop throngs of people from attending and engaging in the various traditions and rituals of the club. Speaking of, let's dig into some of these traditions and rituals now. We've already talked about the trope of ham and eggs, which referred to the food that was served at Breakfast Club meetings, but ham and eggs also grew to hold other meetings in the club. So every member of the club is either a ham or an egg, and the traditional greeting at LABC is, "Hello, ham," responded to with, "Hello, egg." I love it.
So dorky.
Don't call it dorky. They're going to listen.
No, look. Okay, I guess for new listeners who are probably part of the Los Angeles Breakfast Club, let me clue you in on some of our traditions here on the show. Dorky and weird is unequivocally a good thing, so don't take that wrongly.
There are also several sawhorses present at meetings with various purposes.
Wait a minute.
Hold on. 2 that survive today are named Ham and Eggs.
Okay, that makes sense.
Traditionally, there were also sawhorses back in the day named Bacon, Flapjack, and Weenie.
Those are great names for horses.
I know. Weenie the sawhorse was present at the meeting that Calvin Coolidge attended.
Cool.
And these sawhorses serve as sort of like mascots to the club and also have an important role to play when it comes to initiations.
Okay.
Yes, the Los Angeles Breakfast Club has initiation ceremonies when one elects to become a member, like a true initiation.
Okay.
An initiation ceremony consists of an initiate sitting on Ham, the sawhorse, and holding his tail, being blindfolded, and sticking their hand in a plate of runny, sunny-side-up eggs. A vow is taken, and voila, you're in.
Okay. That's definitely ritualistic. So like a real egg, they really stick their hand in a...
Real egg.
Good for them, man.
Side note, Calvin Coolidge was initiated into the club, but he was not made to sit on Weenie the Sawhorse.
Okay. Now, is that at the point where they designate you either a ham or an egg, or is it more like you flip a coin every time you're there?
I think you're just kind of both. I don't know.
Is it like Schrodinger's ham and egg?
We're all hams, we're all eggs.
Okay.
Just if someone says hello ham, you're not going to say hello ham back. You're going to say hello egg.
Oh, I see. So that is like Schrodinger's ham and egg, because whatever the initial observation is determines I'm the flip state of that.
This has been Science Corner with Chris. Schrodinger's egg. Or Schrodinger's ham.
Schrodinger's breakfast.
Other traditions in the club involve a secret handshake that involves 2 parties shaking hands and wiggling them from the wrist over and over, kind of like a flipping motion.
Wait, so like, I see. Okay.
I'm just doing it.
This is an audio program. This is an audio program, but Kayla is making an obscene gesture with her hand right now.
It would be better if there were 2 hands.
It kind of looks like you're...
It's like you're flipping your hand
opening
over
a door,
and over.
like a doorknob door.
This kind of flipping motion may intend to resemble the act of flipping eggs while cooking them.
Okay.
Maybe,
so what you do is you flip the pan 180 degrees over and dump it onto the stove? Okay.
Mm-hmm. You've also got a variety of symbols that uphold the group's values, such as the golden rule, self-explanatory and the group's guiding principle.
Mm-hmm.
The golden shovel, to uncover the jewels of virtue in each bit of human clay.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wait, back. So golden rule is just like the standard golden rule?
I think so, yeah.
Do unto others?
Like, don't be a selfish asshole. Be nice. They'll be nice
That's
to you.
how I initially heard it, yeah.
The buried hatchet, which symbolizes the burial of bitterness, hatred, envy, and greed.
Okay.
And the oil can, to still the waters for our storm-tossed fellows.
Okay.
Other traditions include the Roosters, a group of well-intentioned hecklers present at every meeting with codified calls and responses.
Wait, seriously? There's like people designated to
heckle. The morning exercises led by a group member and undertaken after breakfast, a form of fun and silly like calisthenics.
Okay, that's cool. Like a Western Tai Chi.
I think a little more like it's supposed to be like invigorating. Like
Tai Chi's
your
invigorating.
breakfast to settle.
Right?
Tai Chi is. I don't really know.
I
shouldn't.
I don't know.
Just because I've done some Tai Chi, I should not set myself out
from
as like,
YouTube.
here's what I know Tai Chi to be. I don't know. I like it. There's also songs sung at every meeting, including a sea shanty and others that have been around since the early days or were added on over the years.
Sounds lovely.
You may have noticed some similarities here between these rituals discussed and other groups we've talked about on the show, particularly other fraternal orders.
I have, in particular, the Sawhorse. What is going on?
If you remember our episode on Woodmen of the World, they also had initiation rituals that involved, I think it was riding backwards on like a wooden sawhorse.
I think so. And it was also like encircled, I think.
Yeah.
In like a giant wooden circle. By the way, if you don't remember, if you're not a longtime fan, that was one of our first season's episodes. It was towards the end. I forget the exact number, but if you want to go back and listen to it, it's in our first season.
They're a group similar to like the Masons or the Elks or the Rotary or any of those fraternal clubs.
Yeah, except now they sell insurance.
Yeah, that's
Spoilers.
very weird. Apparently Freemasons also have a similar or had a similar ritual in their initiation known as
sawhorses?
It was known as riding the goat. So I think it was like a wooden goat, and like to the point where I think back in like the early 20th century, becoming initiated as a Freemason was referred to as riding the goat. Like that was well known. Yeah.
Why do all of these, where does that come from? Why do they all have
I don't know.
a wooden animal?
I don't know.
I feel like we should be providing this answer to our audience.
I think you bought a book on fraternal orders, so you should be able to
check
tell
that
us.
out. Okay, this bonus content, we will answer the questions that we should have had for you right now.
Freemasons were also known for their secret handshakes, and while we don't know for sure the origin of Los Angeles Breakfast Club egg flipping handshake, it's possible that it was a send-up of Masonic traditions. If not intentionally, it is just kind of a trope that's found often in these kinds of groups, having secret handshakes.
Right.
And, it's not super secret. Like, it's documented.
It's pretty easy to remember.
Also prevalent at the LABC is a cryptogram trotted out and read aloud during meetings. Created in 1925 by a cartoonist, the cryptogram reads as follows. FVNEM, SVFM.
Okay, so you're having that stroke again.
FVNEX, SVFX, OIC, VFMNX.
Okay.
Any thoughts on what that could mean? Cryptogram?
So that means that what is it, a cipher?
What do you think?
Is it a replacement? What do you call it? I don't know.
No? Nothing?
I have nothing. Got nothing for you.
Well, we'll get to that. But the cryptogram is so integral to the club that it was once painted on the ceilings of one of their meeting rooms.
Is it just like letters on the ceiling?
Yes.
FEVV?
FEVV, no. FVNEM.
FVNEM.
FVNEX, all of those.
FVNEM. I don't know.
So a lot of rituals like other groups we talked about, and also like many other groups we've talked about on this show, the Los Angeles Breakfast Club experienced another trope common to our topics.
Okay.
A schism.
Ooh, that's how you know you've made it.
That's what we always say on this show. In 1931, the first president of Los Angeles Breakfast Club, Maurice Dumond, sadly died suddenly at age 56, likely due to probably a stroke. Unfortunately...
Oh, geez, now I feel bad. I've been making stroke jokes.
You have?
Yeah, I've been saying you're having a stroke when you're saying these letters.
Yeah, well, it's a good lesson for you.
Lesson learned.
Unfortunately, Dumond died without a will, and he was in some sort of the midst of a contentious battle over his estate with either his wife or ex-wife, and his estate, I guess, via the law, went to his son, but because his son was a minor, the wife took control of the estate.
Okay.
And ultimately the club, because it turned out the Dumond estate actually had more shares in the club than the club itself had.
Okay, so they own like a majority of the shares?
The Dumond estate owned a majority of the shares, and so this led to a contentious schism within the club of like, well, who's the real club now? Who's the real owner? Who's the real, where do we go?
Okay, so just so I'm clear, so it's the Dumond estate side versus we're still just the club aside from the Dumond's side?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
And so this led to a contentious schism, which actually broke the club into two in 1934.
So did they remerge, or what is the current?
Hold those thoughts. One club survived to be the Los Angeles Breakfast Club as it is today.
Okay.
And the other also called itself the Los Angeles Breakfast Club.
Classic.
There's issues here, obviously.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there were also issues of debts at the time.
Oh.
Like the club found itself to be in great debts. And then something else great happened, the Great Depression.
Yeah, I don't think either the Depression or debt is really all that great.
No. So things look somewhat dire for the Los Angeles Breakfast Club. Probably both versions.
Yeah.
Both versions met at the same time with similar names.
Oh, like they picked the same day and time.
It was both this is not...
7 o'clock.
It was probably 7 o'clock on Wednesdays. They both met at 7 o'clock on Wednesdays. They were called Los Angeles Breakfast Club. They both had radio shows. And this, of course, was very confusing to members and outsiders. There's even stories of speakers being booked at the same time by both clubs.
Awesome.
And so a speaker did not realize that they had just committed to being in two places at once because they were like, wait, I booked the Los Angeles Breakfast Club. Yeah, there's two of them.
That's great.
Between 1934 and 1937, there were court cases, discovery of debts, all manner of minor scandal, and the Los Angeles Breakfast Club was unfortunately forced to move from its original location.
I'm sorry, which one?
The one that survives today.
Which one was that?
One of them.
You don't know which one it was?
It was the Los Angeles Breakfast Club.
Oh my God.
I don't know which side of the schism it was on. I'm assuming, and I could be wrong, and if anybody from the Los Angeles Breakfast Club is listening, and I will also follow up, I believe that the side that survived is the side that did not go along with the Dumond estate.
Okay, so the fewer shares, but also not monopolized by the DeMonts.
I think so, but don't quote me on that, and I will try to get the answer and give a follow-up.
Okay, this is breaking from 1935.
So unfortunately, our LABC was forced to move from its original location at 3201 Riverside Drive to a room in the Ambassador Hotel. So like there was a separate, kind of ballroom type thing at the Ambassador Hotel as an interim location. And members decided to reform as a nonprofit. And that would actually allow them to eventually buy back their $83,000 in debt for a much smaller amount.
Okay.
This branch of the LABC weathered the storm of the Great Depression, soldiered on in this new location, and the other branch, eventually a detente was reached, and the other branch named itself the Riverside Drive Breakfast Club.
Okay. Do they still exist?
Eventually it would fizzle out.
Okay.
Also,
it's not as catchy.
Not as catchy. The remaining branch of the Los Angeles Breakfast Club was eventually able to get the original ham, the sawhorse, back from the Riverside Drive Breakfast Club.
Oh, thank goodness.
Thank goodness. This is also around the time when the cryptogram was painted onto a board because they no longer had it on the ceiling. It was onto a board that they could roll out during or hold up during meetings or roll out during meetings. And it's the same one that's used to this day.
So like on like a chalkboard with wheels or something?
Like a big wooden board. Like painted on.
I see.
While this is the biggest schism I learned of, it's also important to point out that the LABC had a number of spin-offs and offshoots in other Southern California cities.
Multiple schisms?
And even no, this is spin-offs.
Okay, so
like
sanctioned
sanctioned
schisms.
yes.
Yeah.
Elsewhere in Southern California and even elsewhere across the world.
No way. Really?
We don't know much about the exact origins of the rituals and symbols like the handshake and the oil can, but we do know that these were bestowed upon each new spin-off when they were established. So It's like, hello, I'm Maurice Demond or whoever I am from the Los Angeles Breakfast Club. You're starting your own chapter, I guess. Here are the symbols. Here are the traditions.
Chain of victims.
And so we're talking in, locations in like Palos Verdes and elsewhere in Los Angeles, but also like Hawaii and Australia.
That's far.
There was also a women's breakfast club that apparently had schisms within schisms, like was even more contentious.
This is delicious.
And, like
a delicious breakfast of ham and eggs.
Unfortunately, all of these offshoots and schisms did all fizzle out, but there is still the one true Los Angeles Breakfast Club remaining today.
Okay.
And like you said before, and like we always say on the show, you've made it once you've had a schism.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And if you've survived a schism, that's even better. I mean, that's...
As the LABC grew during the 1930s and refilled its coffers thanks to the free use of that room in the Ambassador Hotel, they were able to raise enough money to build a new clubhouse in 1937. Hundreds arrived to the grand opening ceremony on December 29th, 1937, and the Los Angeles Breakfast Club had its new home. But membership just wasn't quite the same again, and though the founders and members worked to keep the club going just as it was in its glory days, this location was also eventually lost. It was sold in the early 1960s. Luckily, this allowed the Los Angeles Breakfast Club to quote-unquote go home. They used the money from the sale of that clubhouse to build a new property at 3201 Riverside Drive, the original location of the first days of the LABC.
Okay.
In a pretty sweet deal with the city, LABC built the Shrine of Friendship and gifted it to the city under the condition of a 50-year contract allowing Los Angeles Breakfast Club to use the building for their meetings for $1 per year.
How long ago was this?
Well, this was in 1965. So
hold on, let me do some math.
Yeah, that agreement is now overdue. And the current Breakfast Club is navigating that reality.
I see.
But the return home in 1965 reinvigorated the Breakfast Club. The Shrine of Friendship got people back into the swing of things, and the club even initiated then-Governor Ronald Reagan in 1967.
Whoa. Oh, he was governor so this was after he became governor.
It was. So his first year serving was 1967, and this was in 1967.
Before that, because he was only a lowly famous actor first.
He was only the lowly SAG-AFTRA president.
Right.
I believe he was president the last time SAG and WGA went on strike at the same time.
That was a long time ago.
In 1960. Membership continued to build up throughout the years. In 1978, women were finally admitted as full members. In the 80s, the club elected its first female president. But by the 1990s, the club began to see a decline as it kind of came to be considered a bit old-fashioned. So younger members were no longer joining in droves and, worsening traffic and increasing demands at workplaces made the trek out to Riverside Drive at 7 o'clock in the morning a non-starter for many.
So for those of you that don't live in Los Angeles, that's sort of like East LA, and a lot of people who work here work in West LA.
It's near where like Silver Lake, Los Feliz, Echo Park, like the hip part of LA is now.
And totally people that don't live here will know those.
No, I just didn't want to call it East Los Angeles because guess what? That's its own location. And no, this is not East Los Angeles. So get wrecked.
What if I say Eastern?
I think that you're wrong no matter what you say.
I'm just trying to accommodate our non-Angelino listeners, which I realize is a mistake.
For some people, this is really far. And so they didn't want to go anymore.
There you go.
By the 2000s, the fate of the club looked dire again as membership dwindled to just a dozen people in 2013.
Ooh.
Luckily, a young actress named Lily Holloman-Learness discovered the group and helped turn it around yet again. This thing cannot die. I love it. She saw a picture of entertainer Red Skelton performing at the Los Angeles Breakfast Club in the 1930s on a page of the SAG-AFTRA magazine, and she was like, hell yeah, I need to go to that.
Interesting. It's so weird how or it's not weird. It's interesting how just little things sometimes have such big effects. I guess I'm saying chaos theory is cool. It's like this random photo in this publication in the SAG-AFTRA magazine, and then this one person was like, it piqued her interest, and then it turned into this revival. That's really interesting.
She was immediately charmed by the traditions and rituals of the club, of course, and the old-timey welcoming feel, and she knew she couldn't allow this club to slip away into obscurity. It's such a classic and iconic piece of Los Angeles history, even if many of us don't know about it. You and I didn't know about it until this episode. The current leadership at the time didn't know how to bring in new members, but Holloman had ideas. She was quickly elected president and began introducing social media into the group, which the group now has a Facebook, it has a Twitter, I think it might have a YouTube.
Atta girl.
And this, of course, helps spread the word to younger members and younger would-be members, and the group's membership has just kind of grown ever since.
Recruitment is the lifeblood.
As a non-religious, non-sectarian club that cultivates community and friendship in a city that is like kind of notoriously hard to like find your place in. If you move here, it can be hard to find friends. It can be hard to find community. New members were like eager to join once they learned about it. It was just getting that word out that this thing even existed.
Yeah.
The Los Angeles Breakfast Club has even started a podcast called LABC on the Air. Hosted by Holloman's partner, Phil Learness. And this has just helped to continue spreading the word about Los Angeles Breakfast Club. And it kind of recalls those days of the original LABC radio show on KFWB.
They had a radio show, right?
Yeah.
You said that.
Yeah.
Also, I really relate to this because you and I have a podcast.
We do. It's this one right now.
Yeah.
The club is now a more diverse place than it ever was in terms of ages represented, genders, races, ethnicities, orientations, you name it. And they still retain all the wholesome, iconic, classic traditions of yesteryear, initiating members into the democracy of ham and eggs. How does that all sound?
Sounds hammy.
Are you ready to experience it for yourself?
So I do have to get up.
Yeah. Tomorrow. We've got tickets tomorrow to a 7 a.m. breakfast at the Los Angeles Breakfast Club. Okay.
I really don't mean to sigh. It's from everything you've said, it sounds amazing. I'm scared of the sun when it's in that part of the sky.
Look, we are about to break out of our comfort zone, and if we're lucky, we're actually going to get the chance to talk to some of the members who've been meeting every Wednesday morning for decades.
That does sound great, but it's 4:00 in the afternoon, so that means we have to go to bed right now.
Right now. Let's go.
A couple random questions, and as soon as you got to go, just feel free.
All right.
I was going to ask you how long you've been president. What made you want to become president?
Sure. I became president officially last year on July 1. And what made me become president, I actually took over from the previous president had been president for 7 years.
Oh, wow.
And when she came in, the club was at 11 members. And she was asked by some of the part-time members to step in and kind of breathe new life in, because at that point they weren't on social media, there was no website. So she stepped in and kind of built up the membership, and then she was ready to go. Got us through the pandemic and was ready to kind of get back to her life, because it takes a lot of time. And she had, at that point, because it was so small, she had kind of, over the course of time, taken on 3 roles. She was doing club manager, president, and secretary. So when she decided to step down, they split up the president role that she was doing, that was really more than that, into 2 roles, which was club manager and president. We're finding we need to get that secretary role back into play. But yeah, long way around. I was asked if I would consider it, and I was honored, of course, and was happy to kind of take it to the next step. It's like not only continuing to build the membership, but kind of help get us buttoned up business-wise and like look to the future and all that fun stuff.
Is the president role high energy, or is that you?
That, I think, is me.
Okay.
But I think I like the horse riding. That's something I contributed.
Yeah. Love it.
That's good. That's a throwback, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a nod to the Rangers.
I like that you bring back that. You brought back the ham.
Yes.
You telling me
yes. I brought back the ham, and and the chant was something that came when I started. We didn't always have that, but I wanted to give the audience a way to participate and welcome the new member. So that was my little way of doing that. So.
And what got you involved in the club in the first place?
I moved here in February 2020.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Wait a minute.
Okay.
I know
Something
that
happened
month.
From New York City, so it kind of fortuitous timing. But I didn't come here with a car, because I did come here from New York City. And of course, all my plans went out the window as soon as the world shut down. But I walked a lot.
Okay.
And I was always looking for destinations on Google Maps, like what looks interesting, or like a film location or something like that. And I saw Friendship Auditorium, and I'm like, what is that? I was reading about Breakfast Club, and I was like, oh no, if I only would have known in that brief pocket of time that I was here, I could have experienced it. Well, cut to several months later, I discovered they'd actually moved to Zoom.
Okay,
I was going to ask.
So I attended probably like in the fall of 2020, and like after the first meeting, I immediately was like, I want to be a member. I applied. I followed up on my application, and then finally at the beginning of 2021, they granted me my membership. And then I didn't get initiated, as you'll see on my badge, until July 2021, because that was the first time we were back after the pandemic. So they waited to do that. And then so July is a magical month for me in Breakfast Club, because it's when I got initiated and it's when I became president. And it looks like I might need to go to a foundation.
Yeah, absolutely.
But,
Mary, do you mind if I ask you a quick question and record your answer?
Oh, okay.
I just have a quick question.
Do you know where I came from and what I did for a living?
None of that. We'll keep that secret. What keeps you coming back to the Breakfast Club?
I return to the Breakfast Club every week when I'm in town, because they're the most fabulous, informative speakers on subjects from A to Z, on things you might not think you're interested in, but then when you came, you're really sorry you didn't skip the meeting, because there's so much to learn.
That makes sense.
It's great.
What's your favorite ritual?
Oh, I don't know. Oh, okay. I think it's the C.
Oh, that was so
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
came out of nowhere, and I was not ready for it, but that was a lot of fun.
It's good. Yeah, it's great.
Is there anything else you'd like to say about Breakfast Club? Or?
I'm just so honored to be here.
Thank you so much for
the history of this. 1925, and we're about to be at the 100-year anniversary.
Wow. Yeah. Amazing.
Yay.
Yay. Thank you so much, Mary. I appreciate it.
Give your name if you want, if you're willing to say something about.
Yeah, I'm Marty Bashadi.
Okay. And how long have you been a member?
I've been a member since I was the last one inducted right before COVID, and they shut it down.
Okay.
And it was kind of like a lifeline, because we ended up going to what's called Zoom.
Zoom, right? Yep.
And so we had a social life, even though we were locked in our houses.
That is kind of nice.
Breakfast Club, and these people are all so friendly and loving and happy, and So it's
Is that the main draw for you?
to me it's like going to summer camp. I love the summer camp vibe.
Yeah.
You know, where it's like silliness and songs and camaraderie.
Right. I get what you mean about this. Yeah, songs.
And
Summer
plus
camp. That's good.
And plus we're kind of part of a history, LA history, in a way. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Connects you back to that. All right. So would you say it is a cult, or is it just weird?
I'd say it's weird as hell.
Yeah. I'll agree with that based on my experience.
I wouldn't drink the Kool-Aid.
Right. What if it was a really good Kool-Aid though?
This is really good.
If actually it's breakfast, so it would be orange juice for you guys, right?
Yeah, it would. With vodka.
There you go. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah,
I
what's the
really
name of your
appreciate
podcast?
So what keeps you coming back to the Breakfast Club?
What keeps us coming back is just this burst of loveliness every week, and the fun, and also time to spend with my cousin Nancy. And it's always just makes my day better. It's a happy place and with good intentions.
Do you have a favorite ritual?
I do, and I love exercise with Carol. I really love exercise with Carol. I actually hope to maybe be the heir apparent one day. And the sing-along is delightful. I think it's really fun to sing in a group. I think we forget how much fun it is to.
Right. It's like we stopped doing that when we were kids, and
Yeah.
I kind of wish we wouldn't. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, thank you. Okay, so I don't say this.
Yum.
I don't say this lightly.
Sorry.
Thank you, Ham. Aren't you supposed to thank me?
Thank you, Egg.
So I'm an egg.
Welcome.
Okay, cool.
Hello, Egg.
Hi. No, I just wanted to say, like, I genuinely want to go back,
Yes. I want to go back right now.
but I don't know. Like, I think you know the weight of that statement.
Yeah.
My morning. I'm so the opposite of a morning. I hate the mornings. I know I've said that a bunch of times on this episode. So I'm if I recall from our previous recording session, I'm just reiterating it. If I end up going back to this, that's like an incredible feat for me to get up in the morning on purpose. And I am feeling motivated to do so, if that tells you anything.
Yeah. The fact that you were like, we should go back. I would like to go back is like, whoa. Because yes, we had to get up at like, we don't live close to the Los Angeles Breakfast Club. We live on the other side of town. So it's a little bit of a trek, but to get there by 6:45, you got to leave the house by 6 o'clock.
Yeah. And it's just, it was all the things I think you said. It was just like everyone was super friendly.
It was a lot of fucking fun.
Yeah. There was a greeter.
Yeah, do you want to like kind of just like run down our experience, like what we parked and then what happened?
Yeah, we parked in there. They had a little parking lot, and it's kind of this old building. Kind of looks inside like it looks like an not super old timey, but it looks like an event space. That's what it looks like. Big and open air inside. There was a greeting line. People at the end of the line picked up if they were a member, they had a little badge there. If you weren't a member, you were invited to wear a "Hello, my name is" tag thing. And then we went in, and there was like a little buffet line with the breakfast items, and it was basically just like walk around and sit down and mingle while you eat breakfast.
You got ham, you got eggs, you got oatmeal, you got pastries.
Wasn't like a parfait thing?
There was a parfait thing. There was probably there was juice. There was definitely juice.
There was coffee. You
bring it
crucial.
all back to your sit wherever you want, kind of like communal seating. And there was coffee on every table to, I don't know, make people talk about the coffee.
Mm-hmm. And then it kind of gets a little blurry because there were a bunch of things that happened.
But we wrote down notes. So
I
if you
don't remember what the order was. Yeah.
Okay. So we sit down, we eat. Then there was kind of like an introduction of Los Angeles Breakfast Club.
And that was the president, right?
And then we got right into the initiations.
Oh, yeah.
Which was
the initiations.
Very exciting. We went, this particular day that we went, we chose specifically because initiations were happening that day. And that felt, important for us to see the ritual as we described of like sitting on the sawhorse, holding his tail, getting blindfolded, putting your hand in eggs. And that's exactly what it was. It was very much like a cheeky send-up of traditional fraternal brotherhood initiations, and that's exactly what it was. There were 3 people getting initiated that day, and each one was asked to recite a vow that seemed to have been personalized to them by the president, Nora Vetter, who you heard us speak to in that audio. And so that was already, we were like kind of just thrown right into it, which was like, all right, we're here, we're doing this. This is great.
Can I also say, and this is about both the ritual of the initiation and kind of all the other things that you're about to talk about. It definitely felt like, yes, it was a send up, but it was also, it's like how we talk about things that are like deconstructive, but also constructive at the same time. They're like both a send up, but also authentic.
Right.
This kind of felt like that, where it was like, yeah, it's both satirizing something, but also being like genuine about it.
Yeah. There's not an ounce of cynicism. There's not an ounce of like, it's not the way South Park makes fun of things. It's not that. It's loving, it's reverent, it's tongue in cheek, but it's fun, but it's serious, but it's just a good time. I had a really good time. Then there were a set of announcements, which we were lucky enough to get our own announcement that day.
Oh, that's right. Well, we're kind of a big deal. It was announced that we were there to observe and talk to folks. We are anthropologists, and we are observing these humans.
A big thank you to every single member of the Breakfast Club who spoke to us that day. It was, very, very kind of you to let us shove our microphones in your face at 7:30 in the morning or whatever time it was to ask you about this thing you were doing. But again, everybody was having such a good time. It felt like I wanted to be able to capture that. I wanted to be able to capture people's honest reactions.
Yeah, and we don't do that super often. It was cool to be able to get that sort of like firsthand. Yeah. So
after those announcements, there was a raffle. I believe what was being raffled off were copies of a book that was about that was by the speaker who was going to be speaking later on. So that raffle happened. By that time, it was like breakfast is over. Like you had to kind of eat it and be done. Like the buffet line closed, and it was right into the calisthenics. And there was one of the. I will say during all of this, there is I forget the gentleman's name playing piano for a lot of this. So musical accompaniment.
That part was so fun. It was just very like, I don't know. I think we were saying it kind of feels a little throwback, old timey. That was definitely part of it, where it was like there was musical accompaniment to even like the most basic things.
Right. So there was kind of musical accompaniment getting us through all of this. Then it took us into the calisthenics, which was led by a member who put special gloves on and led us through like a series of vigorous exercises. It lasted longer than I expected and was kind of like, oh, this is a good way to get that breakfast settled. Vigorous for 7:15 in the morning. Yeah, you're not, doing burpees, but it wasn't just like rotate your wrists. It was
it was
like
not touch your toes, hands to the sky, touch your toe, that kind of thing. What was it for like 5 or 10 minutes? 5 minutes?
Between 5 and 10.
But it was like like you were just saying, it's really nice as like, right after you eat breakfast to kind of like get the blood flowing.
Yeah. There was a lot of singing songs amongst all of this. So you heard member Mary say, she really likes the sea shanty. And in that, we were just kind of thrown into this because all of a sudden a song was sung, and then all of a sudden the person next to me has their arms on my shoulder and we're like swaying back and forth. Okay. And they're like, luckily, again, all these members were very nice. They explained to us what the fuck's going on as we're doing it. So it's like, okay, put your arms around each other's shoulders and sway back and forth to the song. So that was part of it.
I don't know where a sea shanty comes from other than it's just fun.
I guess. I'm just trying to remember everything that happened. We did do a Pledge of Allegiance, which was, definitely a throwback thing to have, but also updated in that I forget the exact wording that was used, but it wasn't like, say the Pledge of Allegiance because we have blind faith in our country. It was say the Pledge of Allegiance because we uphold ourselves to the ideals of America as it should be, kind of thing, not necessarily America as it is.
Yeah, we aspire to those ideals, right? So I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, I didn't know what I was saying, so it was helpful to have you explain it.
I would like to mansplain to you exactly how America has fallen short.
In the same kind of vein as that, modern addition to doing the Pledge of Allegiance, there was also a land acknowledgement at the beginning. I think it was at the beginning of the announcements. And so a land acknowledgement, very generally, I don't pretend to understand all of the nuances of a land acknowledgement, but something like this acknowledges which Indigenous people's land we are currently on. And so that was part of the announcements. And that's
for people who aren't familiar, that's not specific to the Breakfast Club.
Correct.
Land acknowledgements are like a more broad thing that people do now.
After that, there was the meet and greet line.
Right,
so
the greeting line.
All of the members went and shook hands with the president. There was a chairman of the day. There was chaplain of the day. There was the person who was going to be giving the talk later. Like there was a whole line of people for us to, and all of the new initiates.
Right.
So all of us went and then yeah, what did the greeting line consist of, Chris?
Handshakes? What?
Yeah, the handshake.
Oh yeah. You shook each person's hand. And so yeah, even though you mentioned this on the show, like, and you did the hand motion, I guess I just wasn't expecting someone to like immediately shake my hand that way.
I thought it was like a secret thing. And all of a sudden it was like,
Yeah.
we're wiggling our hands.
Yeah, a lot of wiggling.
After the greeting line, we did, and I could have these stages mixed up, but I think this is how it went. After we did the greeting line, was the reading of the cryptogram, which we have talked about, which did get heckled by the roosters, if you remember.
Yeah, so you telling me about the roosters, that helped me understand. Like there were just people that were like, I guess, dedicated to heckling, and it was like really funny.
It was great. I want to be a rooster. After that, we did have the club historian, Rachel Skitt, who again was gracious enough to speak to us for this episode. I got a lot of my history from her. She recited a poem and shared some things from the archives of the club. And I believe the poem was kind of talking about like, more goodness, less creed, more generosity, less greed kind of thing, if I remember.
That rings a bell, but it was early in the morning, so
It was very early in the morning.
Can I back you up here?
Yeah.
You still haven't told me what the hell the cryptogram is. And they didn't explain it in the meeting.
They did not, which I loved. We will get to that. So after the announcements and after the poem and all of that, we finally got to the speaker of the day. The speaker for this meeting was Laura Gabrielle, who has written a book titled Captain of Her Soul, The Life of Marion Davies. And this is a biography of the early film actress, Marion Davies, who was eventually romantically partnered with William Randolph Hearst, who, as we learned, was a frequenter of the Los Angeles Breakfast Club.
Yeah, I liked the tie-in, and also like I knew basically nothing about Marion Davies, so it was very interesting.
So that was kind of like the rundown. Once it ended, once the speaker ended, that kind of put us at 9 a.m. It was time to wrap up. As you heard, there was a board meeting going on, so we
scurried around to get people's takes.
One of the takes that we did record this person speaking, but we didn't get this statement. But one of the people we sat with, who kind of helped guide us through the exercises of the day, described the Los Angeles Breakfast Club as an exercise in earnestness. And that one really stuck with me, and I loved it. And I think it's a really great description, along with everything else that you heard from the folks that we spoke to about why they keep coming back and what this club means to them. That one just really stuck with me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some of the things that stuck with me, first of all, before I forget, the gentleman that on record that said that it was kind of like a summer camp, that definitely rang true for me. Like that was a very good metaphor, comparison, whatever. Because then you had the singing and you have the like getting up way too goddamn early. I don't know if you ever did summer. Did you do summer camp ever? I did like a Boy Scout summer camp, and like that was definitely part of it, is like getting up at the ass crack of dawn. Like sometimes it was like to go do actual like exercisey stuff too. So I don't know. There's just a lot of elements that sort of like rang true to me there. Yeah, and then the sort of like goofy earnestness of it, like all of that kind of plays into that like summer camp trope, but it's for adults. It's like you don't get to do summer camp again once you pass a certain age. So I think it's cool that this was like, yeah, there's some value to that, right? There's some cool things that there's fun that we do as kids that we don't do as adults, and God damn it, we should do that more.
Yes, we should.
And that feels like that was a big part of their sort of ethos. Yeah. And I also spoke with another lady who didn't quite make it to record because they had to have that the board meeting. But she also talked about, I think you mentioned this earlier, but like how it's good to have this sort of access to community that ordinarily is monopolized by some sort of like religious tradition.
Right.
And so if you don't feel a closeness for whatever reason to some religious tradition, and there are many very good reasons for that, depending on, who you are and where you come from, it's nice to still have access to that kind of community without having to take on that other baggage.
Right.
So anyway, I thought that was another good point that I wanted to share.
Right. One of the only other places where we do sing in groups is at church.
Right. Yeah.
Church and concerts.
Yep. Oh, that ties it into the ecstatic dance.
Yep.
To sort of singing together, right? I don't know.
So that was kind of our experience. We had a really great experience. It was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
We did at one point when it was announced that we were there, when the title of our podcast was announced, there was a ripple of laughter went through the room, which was, I really appreciated the recognition of like, ha ha ha, we are weird and culty.
Yeah.
And one person even yelled out, "It's a cult!"
Yeah. My assumption was that was one of the roosters.
I think it was.
But yeah, I really appreciated that. I also, sorry, this came to mind too. Part of what makes me want to go back is the sort of like variety show nature of it.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's like, it's not just breakfast. It's not just camaraderie. It's also singing. It's also the weird rituals. It's also, you get a speaker. You also get exercise. Like there's like 5 or 10 different things going on.
Right.
That all sort of like provide value. And like the speaker was like, yeah, definitely like a cherry on top there. I think either one of the people we talked to or one of the quotes you had was about how cool it was that there's like a speaker every week. And
right.
I think, that's another cool thing. Like, I guess we have TED Talks as adults, but it feels like another thing that it's sort of like, let's learn. Like you're sort of cut off from that, at least the imperative to learn as an adult, the way you are as a kid.
Well, and the cool thing is that it's all manner of different speakers. So like, one week you might get to talk to the biographer of Marion Davies. The next week you are getting, so for example, the next meeting that's coming up, the speaker is Addie Somek from Inflatable Planet. And this is a person who is, quote, recognized as one of the most innovative, prolific, and well-traveled balloon artists in the world.
Oh my God, can we go to that one? Is that the one next week? That
is next Wednesday. The week after that is talking about native gardens. And before that, you've had things like a sci-fi writer. You have somebody from the Forest Lawn Museum. You have somebody talking about Fleischer cartoons and their restorations. You have Los Angeles scavenger hunts. So just anything that you can kind of, there was an Imagineering legend that came and gave a talk.
Cool. That's Disney Engineer for those of you not in. Actually, we have some like Disney super fans that definitely know what an Imagineer is.
Council members from the local city council come and talking about this. People come and talk about the Magic Castle, Casablanca, like anything that you can imagine. It could be a speaker at this club. Yeah,
and I think that is another thing that kind of differentiates learning as a kid versus learning as an adult. Like usually as an adult, everything has to have a purpose.
Right.
Including our learning, right? Like if you're doing some sort of like adult learning, it's typically going to be, well, I'm, beefing up my skills for my resume. I'm learning this I'm learning coding because that'll help me earn money. What I like about this is that it kind of brings you back to that more childlike way that we learn. And it's just like learning for the sheer joy of it. There's no specific purpose to, I'm not going to like beef up my resume because I know more about Marion Davies, but it does like tickle my brain.
Right. It's something that you never would have learned about otherwise.
Right.
So I mentioned a few times that I was able to talk to Rachel Skitt, who is the club historian of the Los Angeles Breakfast Club, current historian. She has been knee-deep in research and archives pertaining to the Breakfast Club. Mm-hmm. So a lot of what I shared with you today came from conversations and email exchanges with Rachel. I wanted to share some fun tidbits with you. So she was able to share a lot of footage and photos that they've dug up in their archiving process. So a lot of the stuff is now on YouTube or shared elsewhere on their social media, and we'll be able to share it as well in the show notes and also on our social media. So for example, there is a video of Amelia Earhart. There is a video of an initiation in 1929.
Ooh.
There is footage and images from Calvin Coolidge's visit and his initiation as an honorary member.
Dude, these are great.
There is footage and photos of the original Los Angeles Breakfast Club president, Maurice Demond, and
I would like to see all of these. General
footage from those meetings, and Rachel was incredible researcher and has shared with me all of the names of like everybody that was involved in this. So this included California Governor Rolfe, Oklahoma Governor Murray, California Senator Shortridge, Burton Holmes, inventor of the travelogue, like all different kinds of like,
it's random.
Yeah, turn of the century names. There is footage, there's video of Carl Laemmle being announced as the new Los Angeles Breakfast Club president after Maurice DeMond died. There is I have a news clipping of, it's called Civic Officials to Ride Goat of Breakfast Club. So referring to riding the goat. This is from 1926.
Okay.
It also talked about a symbolic, they did a performance of Mr. Ham and Miss Eggs getting married. And it was two performers in drag doing like a phony wedding for the two symbols. There are old photos. She has the earliest photo that they know of so far of the cryptogram once it was painted on the board, and that's from April 4th, 1934. There are also...
You still haven't told me what that is.
We'll get to that. There are also photos of where you can see the cryptogram, pieces of the cryptogram painted on the ceiling of the original clubhouse. So again, we will share whatever we are able to share from what Rachel Skit was able to send to me about all of these like very historic, cool news clippings and newsreels about the Los Angeles Breakfast Club, which like, again, it's not super well known in like mainstream Los Angeles culture today, but it is like a bedrock. Like this is bedrock LA history here.
I've been here since 2007, and this is the first I've heard of it. Granted, since then I have not woken up before 11 a.m.
Sure.
So maybe I'm not the Venn diagram for that, but.
Rachel shared a little bit about how there seems to be some sort of like Breakfast Club magic. She said something like the ghosts want their stories told. So a lot of the stuff that gets surfaced feels like serendipity is at play. Like she will be like, I really want a photo of like I really want a photo of the cryptogram like back when we first got it in 1934. And then she'll be at like the swap meet. And I'm making this story up, but this is the kind of story that we're talking about. She'll randomly be at the swap meet and see a photo being sold of the cryptogram. The ghosts want their stories told. I love that quote.
Yeah, that's a really good quote. And that kind of, it feels like that also applies to the randomness of, I forget what you said the name of the president was that discovered it in the
Lily Holloman.
Yeah. That feels very like, things are on decline, so like we need to spark this with some like random encounter.
She also said a quote of all these people who were destined to meet and be friends, and it was like something that happens apparently at Breakfast Club meetings is people will meet and realize like they've kind of been missed connections their whole lives. Like, so she and her boyfriend, for example, and again, Rachel, if you're listening and I've missed telling this story, please let me know, attended meetings and met other people and realized like, oh, we've gone to every event you've gone to, we've gone to, and we'd never met before. And now we've met here and are friends. And that also kind of a similar weird thing happened to me when we went, in that you and I are standing in the line for getting our eggs, and all of a sudden I won't say the person's name, but I hear a very recognizable name, and I go, huh? And it was the name of somebody who had been in a writing fellowship the year before me. So I had never met this person, but I knew of him. He was kind of like, at least his name was kind of very legendarily known, had graduated the year before me, and I went, I have not met you, but I know who you are, and we're randomly crossing paths here. And he also was not often at the Breakfast Club. He was attending because his partner was being initiated that day. So it was a very chance meeting. So it's like that weird Breakfast Club magic, destined meeting, ghost stories told. So I'm just going to go through some of these other just kind of interesting tidbits or cool things that Rachel shared with me before we get into our criteria.
When you say Breakfast Club magic, I'm picturing like instead of fairy dust, somebody's just like sprinkling like gross scrambled eggs all over somebody's face.
It's bacon bits.
Bacon bits.
I asked Rachel, like, what are some, we know like the famous people who attended. So what are some maybe what are some names that I might have missed? And apparently the original Rin Tin Tin may have visited the Breakfast Club. The dog? Yes. Original Rin Tin Tin.
Is this like Air Bud, but
back
for breakfast?
Back in the day, yes. So that's amazing to me. Rudolph Valentino, the Italian actor, was also a member, and unfortunately he died less than a year and a half into the club starting. And there was a memorial service at the club, and now the Hollywood Forever Cemetery does a memorial service every year. At that original memorial service, the Breakfast Club made him a beautiful horseshoe wreath, including his name badge. So I will say that horseshoes are another symbol that's used often in the Breakfast Club. So the name badges always have this little horseshoe.
Makes sense given the origin.
There was a couple that got married at the Los Angeles Breakfast Club in 1931.
That's cute.
And I believe the gentleman was one of the like Knott's Berry Farm guys. Like originally they got married like on the radio show.
See, SoCal history, man.
Sid Grauman was another attendee. Gloria Swanson, and you will like this, John Philip Sousa attended.
Okay.
And legendarily, this was the first time he got up for breakfast in 30 years.
Oh, I do appreciate that. Yeah. That's kind of how I feel, right? Like,
right.
I'm like, I haven't had breakfast since I was like 7 years old. Maybe I'll go again.
And here's an example of kind of Breakfast Club magic, ghosts wanting their stories to be told. There was a time, I think it was this year, where the Breakfast Club was designing a special button that was, I think they were voting on designs, but one of the ideas was a special button dedicated to a very well-known rooster back in the day named Francis Pat Shanley. So during this time, while the voting's going on and while they're designing this, Rachel went to something called the Arcadia postcard show, or went to a postcard show in Arcadia where, like, I don't know, people sell old postcards.
Okay.
Apparently they'd found old Breakfast Club related postcards there in the past. So like very beautiful 1930s like illustrations of Los Angeles. She's there and she's scouring through and she looks and she finds one that belonged to Francis Pat Shanley.
Whoa.
And it was a postcard that he wrote.
The guy, that's the famous rooster. He wrote it?
Yeah, it was a postcard that he wrote.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. It says Francis Patrick Shanley on it. So it's signed Pat Shanley. So as they're talking about this kind of like legendary person, this piece of memorabilia from his life fell into the hands of the Breakfast Club historian.
Weird.
Another cool story is, as Rachel's been doing some of this archive work, she found a photo of a man named Martin Itchen on the Sawhorse, on Ham the Sawhorse. And he was known as the most famous man in Skagway, Alaska. But
I've been there. It's small.
Yeah. He went on a Hollywood tour in 1935 and visited the Breakfast Club. And obviously that's where he sat on Ham. And so she was like trying to track down, why the fuck was Martin Itchen here? What, can I get confirmation? Can we like talk about this? And she would call Skagway and be like, hello, can I please talk to somebody about Martin Itchen?
She called the town Skagway?
It called the town of Skagway, eventually like got in touch with historians there. And apparently the historian there had been, unbeknownst to the Breakfast Club here, had been obsessed with figuring out who Ham the Sawhorse is, had these pictures of Martin Itchen on Ham the Sawhorse and was like, what is this? What is this? So up in Skagway, there's a mystery about Martin Itchen. Down here in Los Angeles Breakfast Club, there's a mystery about Martin Itchen. And they solved it, two pieces of the same whole.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, those two pieces. You know what they were? They were twin flames.
They were twin flames. And just knowing that like the Breakfast Club reached as far as Skagway, Alaska, and probably even further, Rachel shared with me that the Los Angeles Breakfast Club may have been part of something that she referred to as LA boosterism, as like trying to prove that LA was a proper city with culture and political power. Because again, back in like 1925, it was known as a backwater town. It really was.
I know.
It was out in the West. It was not New York.
Right. And now we're known as a backwater town that has Hollywood.
There you go. So speaking of the LA boosterism, she shared a quote with me that was attributed to Dr. A.H. Giannini. I believe this person was the chairman of the executive committee of the Bank of America. And he was a new resident of Los Angeles after leaving New York City.
When was this?
This was in 1931. So November of 1931. And when he addressed the Breakfast Club, he had this to say. It's a long quote, but it's worth it. If America is the heart of the world, California is the outpouring of its soul. Learn to know your city, and to know what a great city it is, you must leave it occasionally. So it is good for me to be back home, for home is where the heart is, and my heart has always been in California. Every city is known by voices. The voice of Los Angeles is the voice of eternal springtime, the voice of childhood at play, the the voice of hope and charity where hurts are healed and the needy clothed and fed. Looking back at 2023.
We're working on it.
But okay. You should be so enthusiastic about your city that you will advise your best friends in the rest of the world to sell their shirts if necessary just to visit Los Angeles. End quote.
Okay, as an Angelino and a fan of Los Angeles regardless, that definitely appeals to me.
Same.
And I think it appeals to me in an authentic way. Like I like what he said about the, like playfulness and eternal springtime of the spotted
childhood of the soul.
Child soul thing. Anyway, I liked it.
The quote spoke to me as well. I think that we have a lot of ideals to live up to, such as particularly feeding and clothing our poor and needy. We do not do a very good job with that these days. There's always more for us to strive towards. But that's kind of what I have for you on the Breakfast Club today. So are you ready to talk criteria?
Yeah. Is it a cult or just weird? I mean, the guy at the club said that it was a cult.
That one guy did, but then that other guy you spoke to said weird.
Oh, that's right. He said it was just weird.
I think we have to do
I guess
criteria.
we need to do the criteria. Actually, before we get into the criteria, I do have one more meta comment.
Okay.
That I've been thinking about vis-a-vis the criteria and our experience with this particular club and also just like sort of our general theme this season. And it's just I feel this unavoidable bias by participate. Like I feel like there's this.
You go and you're like, oh, I'm in the cult now. It's just weird.
Yeah, exactly. Like I
had so much fun dancing.
Right.
I had so much fun going to the Source Family screening at the Philosophical Research Society. I was like, yeah, these are great.
Right. And so I definitely like there's this dichotomy. There's this balance between like participation definitely gives you a much greater insight and especially like a person to person, like in this case, much greater personal insight because we got to talk to so many people.
Right.
And we got to get their experiences and our experiences. And those are all contributing to like a much better understanding of this thing. And also, is there like a bias that comes in that makes me like these places too much? I mean, like in this case, I think it's fine because it's just like, it's a nice club that's basically just summer camp for adults. But I don't know. It just made me wonder about, are we at risk of having too much bias by doing it this way? Or is that just like a common thing that happens with anybody that participates in their subject matter?
Yeah, I think that there's, maybe it gives you too much bias. Does it also give you far more context?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a reason why some journalists will write a piece similar to how you and I have done episodes in the past where you're purely on the outside getting quotes, talking to people, doing research. And then there are also journalistic endeavors where it's like, I spent 4 days with this person or I went to this thing and participated with myself. I put a fursuit on. I did like the experiential journalism. Yeah, I think there's probably a balance there. It gives you more context, but do you run the risk of missing red flags?
Yeah. That's just kind of what's on my mind. I don't think that we're at any risk of that with this particular topic, but it definitely made me think of it just because of how much I was like, this is great.
I think that we should go to something objectively bad and destructive and see how our experiences.
Yeah, honestly,
after that.
I think that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
All right. Charismatic leader.
So my thing with this is that I don't think there is one, but it does seem like the presidents do tend to be charismatic leaders. Maurice Dumont, the first president, was able to get this fucking thing off the ground by saying like, hey, everybody give me $100. You liked my friend's stories. You liked this band that I hired. Like, we're going to make this happen. And he led the Breakfast Club for 6 years. The two presidents that we have learned about recently, one reinvigorated the club back from almost nothing. You saw how Nora Vetter led the meeting that we attended. Like, could not have more charisma. She was running around. She was amazing. So I think that there are a number of charismatic leaders.
Okay. I guess I'm going to say medium, like on the higher side here, because I don't feel like it's a situation where the charismatic leader is exerting any sort of like, undue influence, as you might call it.
It's not a Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh thing.
Yeah.
It's not a Charles Manson thing. It's not whatever the Self-Realization Fellowship guy's name was.
I don't remember his name.
Yeah, that's why I said it that way.
But yeah.
It's not Paramahansa Yogananda.
That's his name.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I think that it's present. There's definitely charisma happening, but I don't feel like the charisma is being leveraged in a way that you would normally associate with like a cult leader.
Expected harm.
Okay. Again, going back to my bias, I'm having participated in this now. I am definitely biased towards saying that the expected harm is negative.
Yeah, I think it's expected
Not
harm.
Help.
Expected help.
Expected fun.
I mean, everybody that we talked to had that experience. I didn't see anything, usually you can find some sort of, if we're talking about a destructive group or a group that has destructive tendencies, you can find message boards or subreddits that are talking about this. I didn't see anything being like the Los Angeles Breakfast Club is secretly ruining people's lives. I didn't see anything like that. So the best information we have says that the expected harm is negative.
Guys, if there was a juicy scandal, we definitely would have said it in the episode.
I mean, there was the schism.
Yeah, that's true. That's not harm. That's merely juicy. Okay, yeah, so this is like negative.
Presence of ritual.
That's very high.
High.
As we have said, seemingly like the majority of times so many times on this show, it feels like the presence of ritual is really what gets things in the door. Like that's what catches your attention. That's what makes it a topic for discussion for this show.
Right.
And this is no different.
We got the handshakes. We got the initiations. We got the oil cans, the shovels. We got
the cryptogram you won't tell me about.
Cryptogram. We got all of this. Ritual. Niche within society.
Oh, yeah. This is niche within niche.
At one time, it was not. At one time, it was like cornerstone of Los Angeles culture, but now it is very niche.
Yeah. Okay. So it was like well known back in. I guess if Ronald Reagan was a member. Okay. Yeah. Now it's niche, so I would say high. But again, that only makes it a cult versus a religion if we decide yes.
Anti-factuality.
I don't know. They bring in speakers to talk about real stuff. I almost feel like that makes that negative too. Then again, it's not really about facts. It's more about like, logical fallacies, closed loops, that kind of thing. And
did not see the presence of that at all.
Yeah, I didn't see any like. Yeah. There was no like, typical example of this is any evidence to debunk something that the group believes in is used as an example that the conspiracy is out there trying to get you. There was nothing even remotely close like that here.
So no anti-factual.
Yeah.
Percentage of life consumed.
Well, it's one morning every week. So we could probably calculate that.
You probably could. It's probably higher for like if you are club president, if you are club historian, if you are a member of the board. It's probably higher if you've taken on some sort of leadership role, because that always tends to be very life consuming. But as just a general member, 1 day a week.
Yeah, and the leadership, and it's all
for
voluntary, including the leadership roles.
Right.
So I'd say this is pretty low.
Dogmatic beliefs?
Do they have beliefs? I guess they have the like golden rule, golden shovel, golden hard hat, golden jockstrap. What else do they have? What is it? Golden shovel?
Oil can, golden rule, golden shovel, buried hatchet.
Right. I don't even know if those constitute beliefs so much as motifs. It's definitely something that ends in "ef."
I don't think it's dogmatic to have the golden rule as one of your like guiding principles.
No, and there's not a lot of like, everybody else is wrong.
I mean, even like the things that you could say maybe lean more towards dogmatic, such as like asking the Pledge of Allegiance to be said, they couched that in not dogmatic beliefs.
Right.
They surrounded that with context that was not dogmatic.
Right. It's not blind jingoism. It's like love for an ideal.
Yeah.
Okay. So low. Zero.
Chain of victims.
Chain of victims. Well, this strikes me now as a bit of a loaded question.
Yeah, chain of victims.
Chain of something.
Chain of
recruits?
humans?
Maybe we should change it to chain of recruits.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't not feel welcome. Like I felt like aggressively welcomed, but I didn't feel like recruited. Does that make sense?
Right.
Like I felt like, yeah, you should totally come back because it's great. Not like, hey, you should join this thing and you're part of my downline. And
it felt like a non-threatening church in that way. Where
yeah.
It's like a good, lots to be said, but a good religious institution will not make you feel like hounded into joining. And that
I hope that they're listening and they hear aggressively welcomed.
Yeah, aggressively welcomed in a really nice way. I really had a good time.
Yeah.
I mean, you heard that guy in the beginning of the Los Angeles Times story where he was like, "These are my best friends that I've ever made. I haven't had a hard time making friends in the autumn of my life."
Yeah. But there's definitely a chain there, though, right? Like, I wouldn't say it's victims, but there's definitely like a, so and so got me into it,
right,
and I loved it, and so now I'm telling you how cool it is. So hopefully you'll join us.
Medium. Chain of recruits is medium.
Chain of recruits medium.
I think we have to change it.
Change of recruit. Okay. Yeah.
Because if we call it chain of victims, that makes it so that we can't, something that has a chain of positives can't fall under this criteria.
Right.
And it should
be a neutral. Yeah, exactly.
Chain of recruits. Safe or unsafe exit is our final criteria.
I left the building pretty safely.
Correct. Same.
I peed because I had my coffee. And then I left. Yeah. And I felt safe.
Same.
But in all honesty, like, I don't know, like, I didn't get any stories of like, my brother left and like we shunned him.
Yeah.
Like there was,
I didn't read any stories of like the membership declined. And so the leaders like clamped down with an iron fist to try and like keep as many people as they could and like cut them off from their families. Like it didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't get the sense of anything like that occurring with this group. It was just kind of like, people come and tend to stay now because it's like, we talked to Nora Vetter, the president, like she's come every week ever since moving here. We talked to Rachel Skitt, who came to a meeting and has gone back, to every meeting for like 4 years. This is something that people want to keep coming back to, but it does seem like if it falls off, if you aren't able to make the meetings, you're not going to be shunned, criticized, removed from
lose
your
all
families.
Of your friends.
Yeah. So okay, let's go through. So high charismatic leader, medium to high, low expected harm, high presence of ritual, high niche within society, low anti-factuality, low life consumption, low dogmatic beliefs, low chain of victims, low safe or unsafe exit.
Actually, it's negative harm because we were saying it's like presence of fun.
So is this a cult or is it just weird?
I think that's lands pretty squarely and just weird, which
it's just weird.
We absolutely anticipated. I'm really sorry to the guy that yelled out we're a cult. If you'd like to make your case, we'll have you on the show for sure.
Bonus content.
But yeah, it's definitely just weird with, cult like rituals, which is, I think we see a lot with these like more positive type groups.
Agreed.
I definitely want to go back if I can. If I am capable physically.
We could just stay up all night.
Oh, that I could do.
Yeah. Los Angeles Breakfast Club. Just weird. You heard it here.
Okay. But there's still something that we haven't covered.
Hold on. Thank you to Club President Nora Vetter, who arranged our visit to the Los Angeles Breakfast Club, and of course to Club Historian Rachel Skitt for sharing so much historical magic about this group.
And thank you so much to everyone we talked to.
Absolutely. A big, big thank you to every member of LABC who made us feel so welcome at the event. We didn't even say this, but your parents also came with us.
they had like such a good time. It was actually really fun, like watching them like get into it with the sea shanty and everything.
Very welcomed in, and like your parents do have similar community to this. They are very active in their church, and so it was cool to see them find some of those similar community oriented things in this non-church group. I thought that was cool.
Yeah. And if we didn't talk to you, then I'm not thanking you. Screw you guys. I can't believe you didn't talk.
Stop. Thank you even if you didn't talk to us. I also want to thank the Los Angeles Times, KCET, Friends of Griffith Park, Atlas Obscura, Alta Online, and the LA Daily Mirror for their articles about Los Angeles Breakfast Club that made this episode possible. And with that, what?
No.
Oh, I guess there's one more thing I should share before we sign off. Because you haven't figured it out yet. You have not figured out the true meaning of the cryptogram yet, have you?
Yeah, it's like the true meaning of Christmas.
All right, I'll read it one more time. FVNEM, SVFM.
This is not helping.
FVNEX, SVFX.
VFX. Oh, it's about visual effects.
OIC, VFMNX.
Okay, the OIC part makes me a little sus. Like, is it one of those things where it's like, oh, I see. What do you call those? Where the letters or the words sound like words?
I don't know, but I will. I'll break this down for you. FVNEM, FVNEM, FVNEM.
Okay, that doesn't sound almost anything like.
Have we any ham? I've heard from elsewhere that like maybe it's supposed to be kind of like poking fun at the way like a Swedish person's accent might come through if they were asking
cool. So we're making fun
questions.
of foreigners. That's great.
I mean, Swedish ones.
Excuse me. A, we actually have Swedish listeners, and B, I have of Swedish descent.
Same, baby.
Okay, fine.
FVNEM. Have we any ham? SVFM. SVFM.
We have him.
Yes, we have ham.
That almost sounds like more German.
Maybe it's German. I don't know. Making fun of some of those people.
I am very sorry to all of our European listeners.
That may not be true. That is something that I heard not related to Breakfast Club lore.
Oh, okay.
That this cryptogram actually has come up in other places since it was originated in the Breakfast Club. Like it came up in television, and I just saw a TikTok about it.
Oh.
And Rachel was telling me that sometimes the Breakfast Club gets accused of like stealing this from the other places that it crops up, and it's like, no, we have pictures of it from 1925.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. FVNEX. Have we any eggs?
Eggs.
Yes,
okay.
we have eggs. SVFX. Oh, I see. We have hem and X. VFMNX.
Okay.
FVNEM. Have we any ham? SVFM. Yes, we have ham.
Okay.
FVNEX. Have we any eggs? SVFX. Yes, we have eggs. OIC. VFMNX. OIC. We have ham and eggs.
This is ham.
This is eggs.
And this has been...
I have one more thing to say. I think that this cryptogram perfectly exemplifies the vibe and ethos of the Los Angeles Breakfast Club. A little quirky, a little kitschy, a little silly, and entirely wholesome. This has been...
Cult or just breakfast?
Breakfast or just...